You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from Newstalk ZB.
Round 9 of Super Rugby in the books.
Gatland to Rampling. Rampling looking for the gap. Feeds the ball out to Rona. Rona going for the try line. Feeds inside. Nai Saturu takes the inside ball. Try, Chiefs.
Moananu's got it. He feeds it back to Hines. Mo'unga does the switch. Goes to the right-hand side. And Dallas McLeod will score. Try number 6.
Now ball comes out to the back line for Sullivan. And he will score. Ball left again for Zahn. Sullivan gets the legs pumping. And Zahn Sullivan has a second try.
Finds Lelawasa Kegedy. Finding the fast feeder Kulu, who gets it away for Haggerty, who cuts left and cuts his way over the line. Bryce goes in.
All right, Chiefs 50, Drua 17, Crusaders 43, Rebels 27, Blues 55-21 over the Waratahs, and the Force beating the Highlanders 30-17 last night. Our rugby editor and All Blacks match commentator and Super Rugby commentator Elliott Smith is with us. How big a surprise was that to you last night, Elliott, the Highlanders losing to the Force?
To be honest, Piney, afternoon tea, not a huge surprise, to be honest. The Force returning home for the first time in a number of weeks and getting a few players back as well that they were able to inject into their lineup. They've been ravaged by injury in the opening 8 or 9 rounds of this competition. They've had to call Jeremy Thrush out of retirement for a period of time and a few other depth issues they've had as well. They pushed those Kiwi teams close when they were on tour here without getting much reward back in Invercargill. They pushed the Highlanders there. Again, when we saw them play in Palmerston North against the Hurricanes, that ended up only being a 3-point game. And then the Blues at Eden Park, they went close again. So back home, on home territory, and the Highlanders undermanned as well, down to their third and fourth string halfbacks and a couple of injuries among that team and withdrawals as well. I thought the Force actually might edge up the Highlanders. And look, for the sake of the competition, and I'm sure our Southern listeners won't appreciate hearing this, but I think evening that ledger or getting some Aussie wins on the board isn't necessarily the worst thing for the overall state of this competition this year. Again, the Highlanders won't be happy to hear that, but I think that the Force getting a win here and there, not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And because during the game that you called last night, the Blues Waratahs, I was, as well as keeping an ear on it, was also checking out social media. And there's a lot of talk about how weak some of these Australian sides are. And the Waratahs seem to be firmly in the crosshairs for a team that has in the past been quite strong. What did you make of the Waratahs and, in fact, the Blues last night?
Yeah, if you believe the bluster pre-season coming out of Sydney, this was a year for the Waratahs to really push for the top 4. It hasn't gone their way. The team they sent over across the Tasman was without Michael Hooper, without a couple of other players that were on rest for the Wallabies during the week as well. They were missing Ned Hannigan, their star winger Mark Nawangani-Tawaze was also not there. So it was an undermanned Waratahs team, and it effectively went to strip from the Blues. Leon McDonald saying post-match last night in the media conference, job done. Well, it was pretty much that. It went to strip. They built up that advantage before half-time and then kicked on in the second spell. A couple of injuries, obviously, for the Blues out of last night, Stephen Petafeta and Nipo Lala that we're waiting to hear on. But for the Blues, largely professional job done. They made a few mistakes and probably let the Waratahs back into the game in terms of the bonus point situation late in the game, which Leon McDonald wasn't overly happy with. Of course, you need to score 3 more tries than your opponent at one stage. Late in the game, despite the Blues dominating things, it was 6 tries to 3, and the Waratahs get another one, then the bonus point disappears from the Blues. So a couple of things that they need to work on to be more clinical in games, but the Blues, by and large, getting it done. The Waratahs seemingly happy to throw this one away for the greater good. They'll get a lot of players back for the Highlanders next week on home soil. And again, they've been disappointing this year, the Waratahs, but with the 8-team playoffs, they're 10th on the ladder as it stands, but remain firmly in the playoff mix as we head into the back half of the season.
This sounds like a slightly odd thing to be saying, given the fact they've won their last 5 matches and are tucked into third place on the table. But the Crusaders did make a little bit hard work of beating the Rebels. They were behind at half-time, I think, and for periods of the second half before they streaked away. Where are we with the Crusaders at the moment?
they're making very hard work of games at the moment, aren't they, Piney? And the Rebels, they gave the Rebels a 12-point advantage at half-time and managed to find their way back in the second half, and the reserves bench making massive inroads into that Rebels team and getting them across the line. It feels like week to week we're waiting for this Crusaders team to really hit their stride that we have seen in previous years, that we think they're capable of doing, yet they haven't really given us any sense that they've been able to do that this year. So you look at that Crusaders team and you go, well, they've got a few players to come back. Maybe they'll do it against the Chiefs this week in Hamilton, but it feels like we're waiting for them to hit their stride. Again, they're going to be touched in that you would think the top half of the playoffs or have home advantage in the opening week, if not a couple of weeks of the playoffs. But it feels like there's a waiting game going on for them to really hit their stride. We certainly didn't see that on Friday night. It remains to be seen when they'll see it, and perhaps they make a statement against the Chiefs this week. We think maybe we're waiting for them to see that, and perhaps if they do have that up their sleeve, if they can get the likes of Will Jordan, Ethan Blackadder back over the next few weeks, then they'll be able to push this Chiefs side, who are far away the favourites to take the crown, I think, this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to finish on the Chiefs. You can't do much better than 8 wins from 8, and they've played, compared to some of the sides in New Zealand, they've played everybody in New Zealand. They've beaten the Crusaders, they've beaten the Highlanders, they've beaten the Blues, they've beaten the Hurricanes. They are Super Rugby favourites, aren't they?
Absolutely. And they just seem to go out every week and get the job done, regardless of who they're playing and the opposition that they've got. They just go out and do a very, very professional job. We saw that last night, also a couple of nights ago against the Drua. The Drua turned in what seems to be their typical away-from-home performance. They sort of hang with teams and can score some outrageous tries, but never really threaten getting the full competition points. The Chiefs were just masterful. And wet conditions as well, I thought they were very, very good. And they're racking up what is likely to be top seed on the ladder. The Crusaders will come to Hamilton this week. They'll be underdogs. The Chiefs, they win that game. I mean, I've said that they're already favourites for the title, but they win this game this weekend. They're certainly odds on, because you think it'd be a very, very long way back for any team to reel them in for that home advantage, right throughout the playoffs. And as we know, not having to go anywhere during the 3 weeks of the playoffs is so key. So hard to see the Chiefs being knocked off the top spot if they get past the Crusaders this weekend in Hamilton.
Great to chat, Elliott. Thanks as always for taking the time. Elliott Smith, Newstalk ZB's rugby editor and lead rugby commentator. So as we look ahead to round 10, starts on Friday night. Hurricanes, Brumbies in Wellington. Then the Waratahs against the Highlanders. On Saturday, the Fijian Drua welcome the Blues to Fiji. Moana Pacifica against the Rebels. The Chiefs Crusaders Saturday night. That'll be an absolute corker. Then the Reds against the Force.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to Newstalk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.
Hello, I'm Liam Dan, Business Editor-at-Large for the New Zealand Herald, and I'm back with another season of my podcast, Money Talks. In this series, we're not going to tell you how to get rich. We're not going to try and pick the next interest rate move. Instead, I'll be talking to some interesting New Zealanders about how money has shaped their lives and what they've learned about it through the years. Join us every Saturday for a new chat with an exciting range of guests from the world of business, politics and entertainment. You can find Money Talks with me, Liam Dan, wherever you get your podcasts.